The silence had stretched for an eternity, a chasm I had carefully built between my past and my present. Then the phone rang, a number I didn't recognize, and a voice I hadn't heard in what felt like a lifetime. It was Mother, her tone not of reunion, but of desperate plea. She claimed Serafina and her husband were in a dire situation, a crisis so profound it had shattered their lives. Serafina, my younger sister, now bound in matrimony to Dorian, the man who was once destined to be my husband. Our love story, Dorian's and mine, had begun in the hallowed halls of academia, a narrative woven over countless seasons of shared dreams and whispered promises. He had finally knelt, offering a ring and a future, culminating in a surprise engagement celebration, a night meant to mark the beginning of our forever. The joy was intoxicating, a sweet, heady wine, until it wasn't. As the celebration wound down, I wandered into the moonlit garden, seeking a quiet corner, a moment to truly breathe in my happiness. Instead, I found a nightmare. There, beneath the ancient oak, bathed in the faint glow of the city, were Dorian and Serafina, locked in an embrace that transcended mere affection. Their lips met with a ferocity that stole my breath, their bodies entwined in a dance of undeniable passion. They were so utterly consumed by each other that, for a torturous moment, they didn't even notice me, standing frozen, the shattered pieces of my world already piercing my soul. Dorian, my fiancé, the man who had just sworn his devotion, with my sister. The betrayal ripped through me, a primal scream trapped in my throat. When their eyes finally met mine, they recoiled, pulling apart as if scalded, but the damage was irreparable. I fled, the celebratory music now a mocking dirge, the taste of betrayal bitter on my tongue. My car became my sanctuary, hurtling towards the nearest anonymity, a hotel room where I could crumble into dust. Then, the messages started. First from Serafina, a hollow apology, laced with a venomous declaration of love for Dorian. A love, she claimed, that had been simmering for far too long. Each word was a fresh wound. Shortly after, Dorian's confession arrived. He admitted his proposal to me was a desperate, failed attempt to erase Serafina from his heart. He saw me as a temporary distraction, our shared history a mere inconvenience. Their love, he insisted, was an undeniable force, an immutable truth. The sheer cruelty of his honesty was a blade twisted in my gut. I stayed hidden, days blurring into a haze of disbelief, clinging to the desperate hope that it was all a waking nightmare. Eventually, the raw necessity of life pulled me back. I returned to my home, only to find my entire family, Dorian included, gathered there, awaiting my return. A chilling tableau that would have been heartwarming under different circumstances. I had ignored their frantic calls, their countless texts, and now their collective presence felt less like comfort and more like a tribunal. When I finally walked through the door, a surreal calm descended before the storm. Serafina offered a tearful embrace, but my senses were numb, my heart a block of ice. I announced my intention, to gather my belongings and vanish from their lives forever. Dorian, who had been unervingly silent, finally spoke. There was no need for me to leave, he declared, because he had already packed his own bags. He was moving in with Serafina, now that their illicit secret was gloriously, disgustingly, out in the open. As I absorbed his words, I noticed an unsettling cheerfulness amongst my family. They were all smiling, a grotesque mockery of happiness in the face of my utter devastation. Serafina and Dorian stood side by side, a picture of awkward, yet strangely triumphant, sorrow. The dam burst. I demanded to know why they were smiling. My engagement was in ruins, my life irrevocably shattered by my sister, yet they found joy. Mother stepped forward, her voice soft, dangerously placating. They couldn't change the past, she reasoned, but they could embrace the future. Serafina and Dorian, they believed, were meant to be. They regretted the circumstances of their union, but urged me to understand that this was simply the best outcome. Serafina wept, apologizing for falling in love with my fiancé, wishing she could have told me sooner. They were deeply, eternally in love, they claimed, then sealed their blasphemous vows with a kiss, right in front of me. Mother, bless her oblivious heart, even wiped a sentimental tear from her eye. It was too much. Disgusting. I spat, not sentimental. To my utter disbelief, my family bristled. I was being bratty, making it all about myself, refusing to be happy for my sister. My father, his voice laced with the same infuriating condescension, told me to stop acting like a child. They expected me to celebrate my sister's soulmate, not wallow in betrayal. The gaslighting was suffocating. I demanded they leave my house. Their twisted loyalty, their blatant dismissal of my pain, was unbearable. I retreated to my room, packed a meager bag, and walked out, ignoring their desperate pleas for me to stay. Their calls echoed after me, but there was nothing left to say. Their allegiance was clear. Serafina's happiness mattered more than my entire existence. In the aftermath, the attempts to reconnect were relentless, a barrage of ignored calls and texts. Then came the wedding invitation, a grotesque mockery I immediately declined. My friends, those loyal souls, followed suit, and some relatives, disgusted by my family's conduct, distanced themselves. The years rolled by, each one solidifying the wall I had built around my heart. Occasional birthday wishes, New Year's greetings, a feeble attempt to bridge the chasm, all met with silence. I kept them unblocked, a sliver of petty satisfaction in allowing them to witness my thriving, my private life flourishing beyond their reach. Until recently, the unfamiliar number flashed again. Mother. I almost hung up, but her voice, raw with desperation, stopped me. She pleaded for a moment, an urgent need for help. Her distress was palpable, overriding my ingrained aversion. I agreed to listen. Serafina and Dorian, she explained, had ventured into business years ago. Now it was crumbling. Investors were abandoning their sinking ship. Borrowed money had only deepened their financial abyss. They were drowning in debt, pursued by loan sharks, hounded by creditors. Mother, knowing of my comfortable life, saw me as their last, desperate hope. She begged, her voice cracking, for a loan of $75,000 to erase their crippling debts. I questioned why Serafina herself wasn't calling. She admitted Serafina and Dorian were too ashamed to approach me directly, given the past. But Mother, seeing no other option, had risked my wrath. Months had passed since their initial struggles. My parents and even Dorian's family had poured what little they had into the black hole, but it wasn't enough. They were retired, their own security paramount. Mother's desperation was absolute. I could afford it, yes, but I wouldn't. Serafina was right. They had forfeited any claim to my charity. No, I told my mother the word a steel trap. I won't help them. Her shock quickly morphed into anger. I was cruel, she accused, urging me to think of family. I reminded her Serafina and Dorian hadn't thought of me during their affair, and our family hadn't thought of me when they chose sides. My success was hard-won. I would not squander $75,000 on those who deserved nothing but my contempt. She dissolved into sobs, calling me selfish, warning of dire consequences for Serafina and Dorian. I remained unmoved, ended the call. Since then, the texts have been a torrent. Pleas, guilt trips, warnings of regret, accusations of revenge. The weight of it was suffocating. Was I truly the villain for protecting myself? I decided then and there. I blocked them all. I should have done it years ago. I had kept them in my orbit, a morbid curiosity, a lingering fear of regret if something catastrophic befell them. But the fear was gone. My refusal wasn't petty, it was practical. They had squandered everything. $75,000 would be tossed into the same bottomless pit, never to be recovered. It was a substantial sum, not a casual gift, even for me. My friends, the true family I chose, agreed. It wasn't revenge, it was realism. The silence that followed the blocking was an immense, liberating relief. Then a new escalation. A few days ago, my neighbor called, her voice laced with alarm. A couple, she described, was creating a scene outside my house, demanding to speak to me, already at it for an hour. Deep down, I knew. Her description solidified the dread. Serafina and Dorian. She urged me to return, sensing their intent was anything but benign. My gut screamed agreement. I sped home, the fear that they might somehow breach my sanctuary gnawing at me. I arrived to find them attempting to pick the lock. My voice, sharper than I knew it could be, cut through the afternoon air. "What in the blazes do you think you're doing?" I pulled out my phone, poised to call for help, but Dorian, with a swift, brutal motion, knocked it from my hand. Serafina stepped forward, claiming they only wanted to talk, not take anything, at least not at that moment. I commanded them to speak quickly, making it abundantly clear they would not cross my threshold. They agreed to stay in the yard, a small mercy given their palpable hostility. Serafina launched into a tirade. Mother had informed them of my refusal, my blocked messages. I was unfair, she declared. It had been long enough. I should be over it. I was acting out for attention, and my refusal to help was an insult. She had, for now, secured the funds by selling their house and jewelry, but there was a strong chance she would need more. She wanted an assurance, a promise that I would be there for them. "No," I hissed, my voice a barely controlled tremor of fury. "You cannot count on me for anything. I hate you both with a passion." The raw emotion tore through me. "It's taking every ounce of my restraint not to hit you. Leave." Dorian then stepped forward, his eyes burning with an unsettling intensity. He demanded I sign a document, a legally binding promise to give them money in the future. "You're insane," I spat, "if you think you can manipulate me into signing anything." I demanded they leave again. Serafina, emboldened, shoved me, snarling, "You owe us. We're family." My hand instinctively flew up, nearly connecting with her face, but I reined myself in. Violence would only muddy the waters. I snatched my phone from the ground, dove into my car, its engine still running, and sped away. They didn't pursue me on foot, but remained at my house, a lingering threat. As soon as I was a safe distance, I called the police, recounting the terrifying encounter. Then I drove back, arriving just before the patrol cars. Within minutes, I had told them everything. Serafina and Dorian were arrested. I knew the charges likely wouldn't be severe, but the sight of them being led away, humiliated, was a profound, if temporary, victory. The following hours were eerily quiet. No calls, no texts from other family members. Perhaps they had finally surrendered, or perhaps they were merely biding their time. The quiet, however, was short-lived. A week later, my parents arrived at my door. This time, their demeanor was vastly different from Serafina and Dorian's aggressive confrontation. I let them in. Mother, immediately, dissolved into tears, an apology pouring from her, an acknowledgement of her grievous error in siding with Serafina. Father, his voice heavy with regret, explained that Serafina and Dorian's arrest, their physical aggression towards me, had finally shattered the illusion. They had cut them off. Mother continued to weep, as father admitted they had been terribly wrong, that I had been the true victim all along. I listened, the words echoing hollowly in the vast, scarred landscape of my heart. I appreciated their apology, their belated awakening, but it was too little, too late. The past years had forged me anew. I had built a life on my own terms, free from their toxic influence, and I had no desire to return to a dynamic where I came second. I couldn't promise to mend what felt irreparably broken. They pressed, insisting we could fix things, but the problem was simple. I didn't want to. I craved only my newfound peace. I respected their effort, I told them, but I was done. They left, disappointed but resigned, asking only that I unblock them, a tenuous thread of contact. I did, a strange, uncomfortable act, a small crack in the impenetrable wall. But the chasm remained.